you wonderful people. So I want to take today's video and kind of talk to you guys about like a bit of a nerdy quirk that I have. I mean, it kind of is technically two quirks. One doesn't really apply anymore. It kind of does, but you know, it's hard. It's all hard to put into words, but I'll try my best. One of my biggest nerdy quirks, and this applies to video games, more specifically JRPGs. JRPGs are most well known for giving you the option to rename your characters. A fantastic example of that is the Final Fantasy series. Up till about 9, you could rename all your characters. I mean, you get to in 10 as well, but you only get to rename Titus as well as the Aeons, but none of the other characters, because Titus is the only character whose name is never spoken in the game, so that's why. Another example is like the Persona games. They always give you the option of changing your main character's name, because you're very rarely, I think with the exception of like one of the Persona 2 games they made a remake of, like other than that, most Persona games you have no default name for your main character, so you have to put in you can put in whatever name you want to. For me, you can't do that. It's like, oh, here's like, for instance, I would never name Titus me. Like after me, I would never do that, just because it would, I don't know, it takes it away. It just makes it a little bleh. It's like they were given this name, so that's the name they're going to keep. Granted, it's harder in like Persona games when you really don't know like the main character's real name. Like for instance, like the main character of Persona 4, his real name is Yu Narukami, if I'm remembering correctly. Like I said, it's not something that happens that often. Persona is like the only series I know that still kind of does that. I mean, still it's only one character, but you know, that's why I said it kind of like doesn't apply anymore. It's still there, but not as much as it used to, because that's not as much of a thing, being able to name your characters whatever you want. My other one is a bit of a weird one. It is, I prefer default weapons in JRPGs. What I mean is, like, I always enjoy and love the main weapon, like the first weapon that you get in the game, and so typically I like to always play the game with it. So I know it's not very practical, because usually the first weapon you start off with is usually like the weakest, but it's like, to me, they are like usually, like, I always like their design the best out of any other weapon, because typically in most JRPGs, some make exceptions to that, is that when it comes to cutscenes, they always show like that default weapon as their like canon weapon in cutscenes and stuff like that. You have games like Kingdom Hearts, which like whatever keyblade or rather keychain you have equipped is, you know, what your keyblade will look like in the cutscenes as well. Like in the normal gameplay, if you have a certain, like, say you have like your ultimate keyblade equipped, then that means in all the cutscenes you're gonna have the ultimate keyblade, with the exception of some cutscenes. Like for instance, in the first Kingdom Hearts, like no matter what keyblade you have equipped, he'll always go back to the Kingdom Key when he's closing Kingdom Hearts at the end of the game. And that applies to Kingdom Hearts too. Like originally when I played Kingdom Hearts through, just because I wasn't good at it, I'd always switch to a newer keychain, you know, the stronger, you know, keyblades along the way. But when I went through the game like a second time, I was like, you know what? The Kingdom Key is what Sora's Keyblade looks like in its truest form, so why not play the game like that to keep it, you know, legitimate? And I did. And another example would be like the Brotherhood sword from Final Fantasy X. It's not really the first sword that Titus starts off with, because obviously he starts off with the long sword, but I like the Brotherhood sword just because I love it. It's one of my favorite like sword weapons. I just love the design of it, and granted, if I could, I would go through like all of the game just using it. Because especially later on, because there's a certain cutscene that happens in the game that makes the Brotherhood sword stronger. It adds like a 10% strength boost, another 5% strength boost, and as well as adds in the water element, which the water element, you know, to the attacks kind of as a drawback, because I mean, obviously for certain enemies, you can either not use Titus at all, or you can switch into a different weapon if the enemy is like immune to water damage, or like they take half damage from water, stuff like that. Another example is from Infinite Undiscovery, if you're familiar with it. I can never remember what the sword is actually called. Its name always eludes me, but it's a weapon Sigmund gives Capella at the beginning when he's taking Aya to the village to get healed. That sword, it's pretty much the sword you'll always see Capel have in cutscenes. Like anytime he's cutting a chain or whatever, it's always that sword in his hand. So like that's why but I naturally already liked the sword. Like I've always loved its design, but obviously it's like one of the weakest swords in the game, so it's not very practical to use it. You could, especially if you're playing on easy mode or something, but that's, you know, if you're playing on any other mode, it might be a little harder. But it's just, I'm so weird about that. Like, I do switch the weapons around, but it kills me on the inside to switch weapons. It's like I have to, like, every once in a while use like the original weapon just to make myself feel a little bit better. My question is, are there any kind of nerdy quirks that you have when it comes to stuff? Whether it's like, you know, like video games in general, do you always have to do a certain thing or have certain things equipped? You know, anything kind of like my, you know, default kind of thing. Tell me in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for much, much more. Like always, until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.
Nice job, loser.